microphone. Yes, it is on. Then I have another one. What's this one? Huh? Oh, oh, hearing myself. That works. Anyway, let's see. Hopefully there's no feedback. Welcome to ChrisMIA. I'm Christopher, ChrisMIA. Whatever you like to reference me as, you can also reference me as the professor. Um, why? Why do I call myself that? I'd rather call myself a scholar, to be honest. Uh, but I've been teaching for 15 years, every single basic subject, if not more. I can teach anyone between K-12. I mean, let's say I'd rather teach students with a conscious mind ready to teach, to learn. Mm. Cheers. It's a coffee wake up today. But I could teach any subject. My normal focus, however, is mathematics and programming and STEM in general. Hey, Toxic, welcome in. Welcome in. Let's throw you up here real quick. And today, I'm feeling a little bit testy. Where is? Hold on. Where is? Where? What my chair at? Oh, hold on. I gotta move you up there, huh? Welcome in, Toxic. How you doing? There we go. And I wanted to test out some models in programming space. Also, a little a little foreshadowing, a little nugget of surprise. Look forward into what I'm trying to do next because I hate editing videos. I love going live because it's more interactive. I get people coming in, chit-chatting, saying hello, asking questions. That's what I like to see. Um, but I do want to maybe try out a little video editing or something of the like. So you see in my little screen over here, I've got myself uh basically I made this. An AI made this and I modified it, right? I kind of tinkered with it. But it's actually really cool. I'm able, it's a browser app locally, and I have a set of folders with a bunch of GIFs in it. And I can basically play around with my little character and give him little animations. Everything from just a simple standstill, but also I can kind of make him continue his flow. So that's pretty cool. That kind of gives me a little bit more of an ability to maybe do some editing in the future, have a little character speak on my behalf, make it a little bit more entertaining when it comes to more thought out, processed video content, right? But I think I'm sticking to my um, lives. I very much enjoy the lives. I am doing good, Toxic. I am waking up slowly. The coffee is processing, and well, it's gonna take a little bit of moments of time for the caffeine to set in. I'm gonna be a little bit laggy. As you can tell, my ADD is gonna be here and there and everywhere and tripping all over the place. But I wanted to kind of warm up today. I like to warm up with some, it can be a lot of things. Yesterday I warmed up with Contraption Maker, The Incredible Machine um sequel, I suppose you can say. Solving some puzzles, some gaming puzzles. Today I'm gonna go more into, I wanted to do this on my own, but I wanted to now in the case of that idea, I wanted to do it on live. And that's basically to test out a couple of AI models and see how they kind of fend. Anything from like a simple program to more complex systems. I can't say that they will do so good on the complex set of systems, but we'll also check with, because I use Grok for most of my stuff. And I understand Grok is kind of like bottom of the barrel on the programming space as far as like benchmarks and stuff, which I don't even know how much to believe the benchmarks, to be honest. The benchmarks are being hosted by the people that make the product. So it's like giving the pharmaceutical companies the ability to check their own products and be like, yeah, everything's fine. Just take this. There's no side effects. Just take it. Yeah, that'd be $100. So there's no industry in the world that lets itself be its own benchmark. We always have independent um, corporations, individuals, research firms be the benchmark. So until we really do see a decent benchmarking system, we don't really truly know how good these AIs are. But based on current benchmarks, it seems we have, let's see what the benchmarks show here. Got GPT 5.5 thinking X high, good on these factors, global average, reasoning, coding, mathematics, GPT 5.4, Gemini 3.1 Pro. So if we actually like find where XAI's Grok is, it's probably like down in the 20s. There it is. 4.2 beta. It ain't that good. But I use it. And actually I've had a lot of good success because it's not really the case for how intelligent your model is. It's for how you interact with it and maintain kind of a stable, clear, and analytical relationship. If something goes wrong, you let it know what and how and where it goes wrong, and it'll fix it. But if you just kind of say, hey, Grok, my software doesn't work, and then it's like, okay, let me redo the whole thing from scratch, and then it brings you back to a horrible situation. Um, so it really is how you interact with your model that really does make the difference on how capable it is, which is like saying a lot with little. Because we want to base like CEOs, they basically want the ability to just say, "Hey, AI, make me a full-fledged point of sale system done. No details." Like, okay, what do you want the point of sale to do? Do you want it to manage customers, employees, products, services? What are they? All these kind of extra factors that some people just don't think about, especially the high-end CEOs. They want other people to think for them, which makes me kind of beg the question, what do they actually do up there? So I'm not gonna be, well, I'm gonna be testing Grok for sure on the online basis because I do have Grok subscription to be used based on my X account, but I do want to kind of progressively get to Grok. So we're gonna start off with something small. Let me kind of swap over here. Do 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 do. Do have to do some adjustments. Deactivate this. No. Oh, wait a minute. Where me? Oh, activate. That's not what I wanted to do. Deactivate me. Activate me over here. That's the one thing I'm not very happy with. I have to adjust everything continuously, and we go over here now. All right. So here's what I have cooked up. I got a couple of basically servers with AI in them. A lot of them. I got maybe 100 gigabytes of random AIs that I've been testing and playing with. Um, Everything from something simple, like my smallest model, which is the Nemotron Mini. I forgot where Nemotron. I think Nemotron was like the NVIDIA version of it. So we're gonna test that, see how it fends with just building some stuff. But then I have Powerhouse over here, the Quen model. This is a 15 gig model. Now, the interesting thing is I don't have 15 gigs of space on my computer, on my GPU. What I do have is the quantisized Q4KM model. Now, this is a very interesting strategy that basically lets you still use a small amount of GPU, even though the model is like 15 gigs. And it's able to basically pull information from the model that's necessary for that. So you're able to run higher sized models on smaller sized graphics cards. This is actually fantastic. It does run pretty slow, and if for a program, I might want to increase the context, which kind of increases my overall processing here. I will need to manage and maintain eyes on my performance on my graphics card here just to keep an eye on it. Okay. And maybe free up some space, but I am on Windows. That's the one thing. I've set everything up on Windows, which is unfortunate, but it is what I have. So memory's not bad, performance not bad. We got a minimum graphics card usage at 1.5 GB for the operating system. Imagine being on a Linux system where that's like down to 3,400 megabytes. But I digress. So I do have about 6.4 gigabytes of buffer. Maybe my largest context will be about 10,000. And I'm gonna have to work with that context window to basically create either one giant program in a single file or attempt to basically split it up in small pieces and let the AI give me pieces and parts. I'm going to have to strategize local development in this form, which may entail me kind of getting some documentation based on how certain files should function. Because every time I do talk to the model in a context window, it does take all of the previous context and throw it into the actual process. So it regurgitates everything we talked about and then fills in my context window, which can be very costly on your tokenization. So I'll have to essentially develop a nice strategy to do this without too much token usage. In the end, it's all about efficiency. And I do have the DeepSeek. Did I get the DeepSeek? Yes, I do have the DeepSeek Coder V2 Lite. So I'm actually excited to test this out. It is a 8.8 gig. Let me see. Yeah, it is a quantized version, I believe. Yes, Q4KS, Q4KS. All of the ones in my LM Studio are quantized, and I have been leaning a lot towards LM Studio because they seem to be kind of more up to date. Would I call it more up to date? I feel like Olama, the repository for Olama is a little lackluster. When I go to actually download stuff from Olama on their online repository, it kind of lacks variety. But when I do look at, let's say, mm, the repository here, I basically have access to all of Hugging Face, and I can pick and choose whatever models I want, do a little research, even organize it by most downloads based on demand. So this is very nice for me to kind of really get a good idea of what people are using and potentially which ones to test out. So I do really like the repo management in LM Studio. On top of that, there's a lot of quantized versions that I can actually apply, meaning that I can get bigger models on my smaller graphics card and still be capable of using it efficiently. So I have been leaning a lot towards using LM Studio more, at least on the interface based. If I'm going to be actually doing programming in the back end and using Python to access a server, I'll probably still use Olama as the back end when I'm actually doing queries through my Python scripts. But in the case of me actually just using it right away for the testing purposes of today, to actually check out to see what models can bend in what way, good or bad, based on some programming tasks I would like them to achieve, we will test it out in, well, I'll test it out in both really, Olama and LM Studio, since they kind of have two spaces of AIs of language models in two different folders. And the problem is they can't interact with each other. Like I can't use LM Studio to access my Olama models because they format and hash them a certain way for their little management system that's different than the way LM manages the files. So that's the only problem there. On that note, let me throw a little background music here. Hold on. Okay. So here we go. What do I want to start with? We're going to start with something simple first. Essentially want to just try the first task is gonna be so easy. Oh, hold on, let me grab you. I'll keep moving stuff around. My chat. Oh, oh, I'm in the wrong. There we go. This is better. There we go. You're up here now. See you. I was actually in my tutoring workshop or workspace, but now we're on the online streaming workspace. Let me see what the statement was. Hi, at age 26, what should be priority? Locking yourself in and building and learning all day, or having fun dating, partying? In my time period, man, it's tough. It's a crazy timing. 26 is like you don't want to miss out on a bunch, but also you do want to develop. If you can balance it, yeah. But I will say my 26s were I try to fit everything, and I slept 3 hours a night. How about that? So I'd say experience life. I had enough experiences in my life to actually be like, all right, I have gotten out of my system and I want to be serious. You got to have that at some point. You got to have that. You have to experience it so you don't look back and be like, oh, now I got to do everything I missed doing back in the day, right? Which can be bad when you're older. When you're younger, you're more versatile, you're more dynamic, you can do more things and still survive. But past 30, your ankles and your knees start hurting and all that jazz. I'm still fine, 36. But in my 26s, I was working full time. I was going to school, college, university. Well, I was 20, 24, 25, 26. I was working full time, but I was trying to make ends meet, but also trying to have fun because I started feeling like I was in sort of like isn't, right? So here's kind of the tip generally. Human beings don't like to be scheduled. They don't like to stay within a schedule for a long period of time. So alternate. It's not about, hey, I'm 26, what do I do until I'm 29 or 24 until I'm 27? Alternate. 1 year, just dedicate full productivity. Waste it, right? Full productivity. Work as much as you can. Save as much as you can. And saving does mean being frugal with what you spend. So maintain focus on one thing per year. And then next year, be like, I'm going to rest. I'm going to go have fun. I'm going to enjoy myself. Then maybe spend some of it, right? And nowadays, you can save and invest. It's kind of how the market works nowadays. So the money you make in 1 year, if you invest it intelligently, meaning that you do educate yourself on the types of investments and you don't just YOLO all your money into crypto, you could potentially maintain a full year of just being you. Now, on the other handicap, most jobs look for like 2 years experience, 2+ years experience. It kind of sucks to just see a person only working for 1 year and then going away. The 3 hours, they backfired at, that's kind of when I started meditating and taking like these odd set naps. I'm gonna, I guess, diverge a little bit from the point here. I'm gonna interact a little bit with you guys. So, oh, I gotta do this thing here. So, yes, 3 hours, horrible. But there is this sort of like sleeping scheduling system I don't recommend. I'm not a health and professional, but I do recognize that we came from a set of human beings that would alternate sleep because at night predators came out. And you couldn't sleep 8 hours a night in the middle of the jungle back 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago. That's just not feasible. So our sleep schedule was different back then. It was an alternating factor. You'd have someone sleep for a couple of hours, then take the night shift, and then keep alternating. So we do have that built into our system back from our ancestors. And I was thinking, well, why do we even do 8 hours of sleep? Well, it's kind of because our daily life has adjusted to this. So I looked up online and I found stuff like this. The Uberman sleep schedule, for instance. There's a bunch of different types. I don't recommend any. I recommend your typical. I mean, if I do recommend one, it'll be the Biphasic sleeping schedule. All right. But if you want to go ham, you could try it. Don't do it don't do it long term. I did it for about, I want to say like 4 or 5 months before it collapsed, before it just completely became detrimental. I couldn't think straight. Just went a little bit too much, right? But I would work 40 hours a week. I would go to school in computer science, which means that you're programming. And you're not just programming at school. You're creating at school, and you're coming home and spending another 7 hours trying to figure out why your creation doesn't work. So like you are spending a lot of time at the school level, especially for your computer science based classes. Much more than like a business major. Like all they got to do is just kind of like go to a fraternity and meet people and, hey, my dad is this. Who's your dad? And then they get to know each other, and then they make agreements under the table until they grow up and become CEOs, right? Business majors. But the computer science and computer engineering, they are heavy on thought. Heavy on thought. So let me see. I don't want this. What about? There's a bunch of them. I remember having a graph somewhere. I wonder if I saved it. Sleep patterns? No. Let's see. Uberman, Biphasic. There's a chart that shows all of them. There's like 8. But I guess these are the main ones here. So this is what I tried. I tried Uberman, my dudes. It was kind of like a try. I didn't want to really do it because that's literally sleeping 30 minutes every like 4 hours. Imagine doing that, right? Every 4 hours you take a 30-minute nap but this did raise a kind of meditational sense in me where I was able to meditate myself to sleep into deep sleep. And then I had this app called Sleep Cycle where I could measure, make sure that I'm going into deep sleep. So you have to measure, man. You have to have your tools to give yourself awareness of what's going on, right? So here's yeah. Oh, come on. It's come on, man. Are you really gonna do this to me right now? Hold on. Seriously? Okay. There's kind of like, look at that dip, man. That dip is insane. I hate that it's doing this. Just accept it. There we go. So if you take a look at that dip, that's me going directly into sleep. Oh, fucking, hold on. I hate doing this, but there. That dip is me going into sleep directly. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, I don't think. I have sometimes rockety sleep up and down. Sometimes I wake up, my cat jumps on me, plays with my legs, something weird, right? But when I do go into meditation, that happens. So not only did I like go through this phase of attempting to like optimize the amount of sleep I had, I also was going a lot into like this how can I do things better? Hold on, where am I? I'm over here. And one of the things was like, all right, if I'm gonna do this Uberman sleep schedule, I'm gotta make sure every 30 minutes is 100% sleep, deep sleep, right? And I tried that. Maybe that worked out for a couple of weeks until it really caught up with me. I didn't really have like we don't have this sort of lifestyle to really maintain an Uber sleep schedule, the Uberman, because you got work. You can't just go take a nap 30 minutes randomly, right? I'm glad this is turning from an AI stream. Well, it's office hours. We get to play around with whatever, right? To like sleep schedules. So this was not very realistic for me to actually do. Yeah, this is the same method. And Einstein. This is also another thing. I was like, how can you have like Tesla, Einstein, all these people have these like peculiar set of sleep schedules? And they did fine, but like, oh, but we all gotta have 8 hours. It's written in the word of health books or whatever. So I was kind of curious, you know. So my experiment was this. I like the biphasic sleep. That was my ideal, and that's kind of what I do now on a regular basis. It's basically a siesta, man. I'm basically Mexican. I'm basically Mexican at this point. About like you sleep about 6 hours and then you take like an hour nap. That's it. You save an hour because the technicality is that you should take 8 hours of sleep. There's a weird mathematical adjustment that I realized that when you take naps, it offsets extra time that you don't have to sleep. When you build up a full sleep schedule, like you stay up all day, yeah, 8 hours is ideal. But if you take 6 hours sleep and one nap, it's you sleeping 7 hours. Then you go further down. I did this for a while. Every man sleep schedule. This one was about 3 to 4 hours, and then I take about 30 minute, 30 minute, 30 minute. If I did 4 hours of sleep in the main and an hour and a half naps throughout the day, that's 5.5 hours that I actually slept, and I felt good. It wasn't bad at all. I don't know about this one. This is probably like an hour, but I didn't test that one out. So I did like, if I'm trying to grind, I'm probably doing every man sleep schedule. On a regular basis, I'm doing Biphasic sleep schedule. I tried Uberman. It wasn't for me. Potentially, if I have the ability to not have to like have a schedule and just maybe like just streaming, that'd be cool if I can just stream and make a living off of it. Then I could literally do the Uberman, because I wouldn't have anything else. I wouldn't have. Well, I'd still have students, right? So that's another equation, Fork Boy. That's another equation. So you got to go into, and this is kind of a cookie cutter, but let's ask Grok because he knows, and I've seen it before, so I can verify that this is the case. So let's say in a typical average human, what is the cycle of sleep with REM and its stages, and how long does it last? It's about an hour and a half. Every hour and a half, you take 1 hour of physical sleep and 30 minutes of REM deep sleep. That's the pattern. So, REM rapid eye. So there it is, 30 minutes last cycle. 20 to 40 minutes is the longest deep sleep, wave sleep, hardest to wake. This is also the case where, like, if you wake up at the wrong time, you're going to be grumpy, because that's kind of how it works. There's certain stages you don't want to wake up at. That's also why I use the little sleep cycle app a lot, until I was able to manage my own cycle manually without using it. My body eventually adjusted to when I should wake up. But when we use an alarm that specifically wakes you up at a certain time, that's when, like, there's no identification of what part of your cycle you're in, right? So your body just wakes up and you're like, oh, it could have been a great sleep because you woke up right at the right time where you should be waking up at the end of your cycle. Or it could be in the middle of your cycle and you're waking up because your alarm and you're like, oh, fucking A. That's why they kind of like standardize the system. You go to bed at 10, you wake up at 6, 8 hours straight, every hour and a half, right? 1 hour and a half, 3 hours, 4 hours and a half, 6 hours, 7 hours and a half. There's your 5 cycles per night. That's about 30 minutes each of REM. That's about 2 hours and a half of REM a night. That's really the minimum you need to take. That's why all the other sleep cycles work. Because your minimum should be my minimum. I mean, I'm not, again, speaking on behalf of any sort of health aspect. I'm speaking on behalf of my observations of myself. 2.5 hours of REM is the minimum you should take. And everyone doesn't have the ability to go straight into REM sleep. So we use that longer span of about 8 hours to make sure we get as much as we can from it. If you optimize it through what I did, meditation and things like this, to go straight into sleep, works great. For others that kind of shift around and move in their sleep, it's going to be much harder to literally stand and not wake yourself up or not shift around in bed, which prevents you from going into REM. There's a certain method that you want to use when you're meditating into sleep to go directly into REM sleep. But 5 cycles, 30 minutes per, your average 2.5 hours of REM sleep is pretty ideal. Perfect, actually. So that's why you can muster the everyman sleep cycle, because that's about a 3 or 4 hour cycle. Right here. The everyman sleep cycle, you're going to fit your REM sleep in here. Now, what are the rest of these sleeps about? Physical recovery. Now, if you're doing sports and lifting and doing all this extra stuff, physical, no. You're going to have to get as much sleep, because, again, sleep is a mixture of both physical recovery and mental brain neuron recovery. So if you're kind of like me, doing programming, doing work from home, teaching, educating, and stuff like this, you're not expelling a lot of energy. So you don't have to do the same level of like extreme sleep. But If you're a laborer, plumber, you're a construction worker, whole different story, right? So those are the considerations. But your typical REM brain recovery is about 2.5 hours. Um, entire night, 4 to 6 full cycles, yeah, there it is, right? I basically summarized Grok for you without even going through it. Um, the portion can be 30 to 60, right? But the average is about 30. When I first started, it was about 15 to 20 minutes per hour, hour and a half. And then eventually, as I kept meditating and practicing and going into that sleep cycle and really figuring myself out in that form, I was able to extend it to about 30 minutes plus, maybe 45 minutes if I had like an exhausting day, right? So that's the case there. Anyway, good talk. Good talk on the sleep because that is important. Like we underestimate how sleep does affect us. So it's really important to really understand your own body because it's not going to be, again, this isn't me telling you how you should sleep. This is me expressing how I identified myself in my own patterns, which you can now do with yourself. There's measurement tools for this. Try it out, especially if you're trying to grind in school, man. That is such a godsend to have. Sleep Cycle does have a free tier. I'm not sponsored by it, but hey, whatever. Um, and I think you can buy it for like maintaining longer set of data statistics, but that's basically it. You can set a sleep value where it says, "Hey, we'll wake you up at 7:30," and a 30-minute within that window, right? So 7:30 to 8, and you put it on your bed. It'll kind of like listen to the vibrations of you sleeping. It has a microphone too. I'm not sure how that works exactly, but it'll kind of keep track. If you're moving around, it knows you're in the wakeful state and it'll wake you up when you're moving around. But if you're completely still, it's not going to wake you up until it notices you're starting to move on your own, entering the wakeful state. So that was a big difference there, managing and juggling work and school at the same time. All right. So on the basis of AI stuff, let's kind of play around. I'm going to do some simple stuff at first, right? Let me see. The first thing is like the AI, Grok, created this little thing. I mean, a lot of these little things. This little equation thing here that I use for my students to understand how equalities work. And then where's the other bit? The emoji battle animation. Where's my animation? I have it in my thing here. And then the animation that I'm trying to play with, I want to use this as a tool to kind of like create some videos potentially using my little character here. I have a bunch of GIFs that I've added into folders. And that's what I told it to do. I was like, hey, can you make an application that'll take images in a folder, create them in sequence, put them from 0 to whatever, and activate a animation-based system. And then I can pick where I want to have my animation and use keys on my keyboard to kind of just, change my actual avatar. And I can kind of work with what I'm speaking, how I'm presenting, and then kind of like do whatever, It's like, I don't know, stuff like that. So being able to do this is going to be pretty cool. I like to make my workflow smooth. I'm not an animator. I'm hardly a creative individual. Maybe out of my brain, I'm 75 logic, 25 creative. Man, this was coming from like 95% logic to 5% creative. My creativity was limited to drawing stick figures on paper in a World War II scenario with tanks and stuff and having this whole imagination of what's happening at the time. That was recreational of history even. So that's my creativity in the past, but I have developed it over time, which is also a key to be able to kind of really work with a good sense of both sides of the brain, find ways to basically like optimize both sides. Try being creative if you're not, find a way to basically do some activities that will help your creativity. Drawing, I don't know, stuff like painting. I don't know, man. Not even that. Like get some applications, 3D design. Get Blender, play around with Blender, get creative with it, create your own scenes, your own worlds, all that kind of stuff. You can use a computer to basically do it all. So that was created by Grok. It was pretty smooth in the process. But when I go further into it, let me create a little AI code, HTML. I need to organize myself, games, ChrisMIA backgrounds. Let's do AI test. So I'm gonna have a couple of folders. I'm gonna try out GPT 4.0. This is like a distilled version, so it's not the original. I'm gonna do Quen, DeepSeek, and Claude. What was the other one? Quen I'm gonna try out. This is the 3.5 versus the 2.5. That is still another adjustment I gotta probably check out. Let's start it off like this. I have the highest suspicion that Quen 3.5 is gonna do the best, but that's also a 50 gig model on a local computer, which is insane. But we'll start it simple. Let's try out DeepSeek. I'm gonna load it in memory with probably like 10,000 context. How much space do I have? Why did my graphic go up, dude? Wait a minute. What's taking up my graphics? Hold on. Who's taking up resources? I didn't tell you you can do that. Why doesn't it have a GPU maintain here? CPUs, okay. CPU, memory disk overview, disk network memory, CPU memory disk. Where's my GPU though? How do I offload GPU memory? That's effed up, man. Okay. That's confusing. Hold on, let me close out Llama. Sometimes a Llama, yeah. What's a Llama doing in my background? I didn't even load a model yet, bro. Sometimes it'd be acting weird too. I just closed Llama and I freed a gigabyte. What you doing, Llama? What you trying to do there? I'm wondering if... Yeah, my Mac is on, and I don't know if I have my AI running on that server, but it could be patching in, trying to take some of the processing. Anyway, I'll do it one at a time. So let's do... How much space do I have? I got about 5.4. Really? That's it? 6.4. 6.4. So let's do about a 7,000 context. Load it up. There it goes. Loaded. I do like the fact that I can load and eject, almost like I'm doing like cassette tapes. That's pretty cool. And then I'm probably going to do a new window, new chat. Let's do something simple, right? Create an attractive web HTML website with smooth animations and transitions between models, tabs, menus, and other design effects. Now, that might take some time. I'll take that. We can also baseline on Grok, what Grok will do. I do have it running online too. That's nice. I don't have Grok folder. Let's do a Grok folder. So this is DeepSeek. I'm excited to see what it does. Huh. It did nothing. It did absolutely nothing. It did call the tool. Attractive web design examples. No, you create it and give me the code. Okay, am I gonna be fighting with this AI model? You're gonna guide me? Okay, you can actually show me the code. Good. Let's see what it does. On that note, I'll grab a new window here and see what we're kind of working with. Okay. So that's a data center based AI, right? So Grok is running on God knows how many GPUs. And you can tell the difference between my local and Grok on hyped up GPU power. I'm gonna reset stream because I do notice that long streams aren't very attractive to YouTube and to viewers, but if you're in here, sorry, I'm gonna reset and stuff. All right, we're back. So it looks like both my AIs have finished. I'm just trying to organize streams a little bit. Let me see. Wait a minute. It's still going. I thought it would reset, but hey. So let's test out. Let's see. We've got a JavaScript simple is in viewport. Okay. We got HTML set. I'll go ahead and set this up. So how do we set up HTML? Super easy. I'm gonna go to my Deepseek folder, create a new folder, test1, and I'm gonna open it up in code. Create a new file called hello. New file called index.html. Save the HTML inside of that. Grab the CSS, make sure it's named accordingly. They just named it style.css, so I'll just do style.css, copy and paste that. And then JavaScript. JavaScript, which script.js, there we go. So it seems pretty simple, small, not that heavy. So it's an interesting one here. Then I'll go ahead and open up the index. No, absolutely nothing. Is anything even going on in the background? Failed to load, file not found. Oh, wait a minute. Styles and scripts. Okay, they're using plural. Yeah, make sure you are naming everything accordingly. I just forgot the plural part. All right. This is like something I can make with a bootstrap, man. Nothing. So, what do I give the rating? Bad. This is for design, right? I'm not too sure. I'm gonna rename this to. I'm gonna just give it a little file here. Text. Bad design. Note myself in the little text file. Then I'm gonna grab the same thing. Might take some longer though. That's the problem with the AI locally. They do take quite some time. I'm gonna eject that. Let's do the Qwen 3.5, the smaller model. Should be faster. Okay, so it didn't really reset. All right, let me reset again and actually name it appropriately. I would